Qiang Jin Jiu Extra Chapter. The Past, Part 1. At sunset, a pair of military boots entered the creek among the bush. Xiao Qiye leaned in and lowered his hand to wash his thumb ring. Bloody spots spread in the light, cold water of the stream, disappearing in just a whirlwind. Xiao Qiye washed it carefully. His serious side profile seemed a little obscure in the glare of the sunset. His eyebrows were also furrowed in a discontented frown. Zhao Hui, who was leading the horse, patted the dust on his body and looked at Xiao Qiye's back. He deliberated on this for a moment before shouting, "Second young master." The water from the creek babbled. Xiao Qiye took a small step back and looked at Zhao Hui. This was a wolf cub. The expression in his eyes was completely different from that of the heir apparent or even the rest of them. Zhao Hui began to hesitate under that gaze of Xiao Qiye. The helmet on his hand felt heavier and it pressed against his fingers until it hurt. He initially intended to goad Xiao Qiye, but in the face of such a gaze, he failed to utter the advice of be careful. It was as if that would break the spirit of the wolf cub who had just won a victory in his first battle. Xiao Qiye raised his hand and cleaned his cheek. His arm guard was made of dog skin. Having been damaged in the intense battle, it has now fallen into the water along with his movements. This gave him an awkwardly air of childishness, as if he did not hold his handkerchief tightly while blowing his nose. Zhao Hui suddenly remembered that the second young master was only 14 years old this year. Wanting to recover the arm guard, Xiao Qiye wades through a few steps with the flow of the current, but before he could touch the arm guard, the sound of flapping wings rang above his head. The world in front of him darkened and Meng plunged at his face as it hit the water of the stream. "Hey!" Xiao Qiye protected his face with his arm and pushed Meng away. Meng grabbed his arm guard and kicked out with its claws, tearing the arm guard that was already damaged into pieces in his fight with Xiao Qiye. "You!" Xiao Qiye cursed as he grasped the falling pieces. "Bald bird!" Meng spread her wings and flew to the sky. Once again, it passed through near Xiao Qiye's cheeks and provocatively turned into a circle, causing Xiao Qiye to grab the empty air as he brandished his hands. "Forget it, second young master," said Zhao Hui, tried to comfort him from behind. "Don't be angry about it. This arm guard can no longer be used anyways. I'm going to ask Chen Yang to give you another pair later." "I don't want that." Xiao Qiye walked out by the water, shaking the drops of water all over his face. He won this arm protector fair and square from Zhao Hui and the others. The second young master stood in the camp, pulled his bow and fired his arrows, almost piercing Zhao Hui and the targets of the others. Zhao Hui was about to persuade him again when he heard the second young master said, "We have no shortage of arm guards everywhere at home. And you want to give it to me?" "No, unless we have another match." Following Xiao Qiye, Zhao Hui sighed. "We can't. We use old targets exchanged by soldiers. They can't withstand some of second young master's arrows." With this, Zhao Hui was openly grumbling and at the same time, praising him quietly. Sure enough, the discontent between Xiao Qiye's eyebrows had dissipated a little. Xiao Qiye was at the age when he was being difficult to deal with. At home, he would annoy Xiao Fangxiu so much that His Highness would pursue him while swinging a stick. In everything he did, he wanted to do things differently compared to others, just like the surprise attack this time. Even Xiao Jiming didn't expect that he would dare to do this. The commanders of various camps exercised extreme caution under the premise that the heir apparent was in danger and dispatched the cavalry to protect and escort Xiao Qiye home. No one expected this proud and fearless young man would drag them by force across the vast river and crawl through the night to set the enemy camp on fire. Xiao Jiming's expression when he looked at Xiao Qiye at that time was very complicated. Even Zhao Hui, who served the heir apparent for so many years, could not say if the heir apparent wanted to give the second young master a few kicks at that point, or if he wanted to praise him with a good job. "Ah yeah. Did you bring clean shoes?" Xiao Qiye looked at his military boots that even spouted water as he walked a few steps. I don't want the arm guard anymore. Instead, give me a pair of shoes. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu Extra chapter. The past part 2. The Prince of Libei does not wear shoes. Xiaopang Sui squeezed himself against Shen Zequan, with a red face as he said aloud to children who crowded around him, the Prince of Libei wore a diabolical bronze helmet, with a sparkling treasured sword in his hand as he spurred his horse to kills its way out of the heavy siege in a sea of blood. He scared the Biancha Baldies so much that each and every one of them wet their pants in terror and immediately scatter around like loose sand. It was hot at the time and the heat waves were stirring on the ground. Those peddlers who sold their goods through the streets had disappeared. The outdoors was like a bamboo steamboat, so hot that everyone was on the verge of being cooked. Only this place that had an old pagoda tree could still provide some shade. The children listened, delighted with the story. Only Shen Zequan said, "You said clearly the last time that the Prince of Libei doesn't take off his armor when he sleeps, so why did he take off his shoes this time?" My older brother said it gets so cold in Libei after the fall that it can freeze people to death. He can't fight battles if he's barefoot. Xiaopang Sui was talking so fervently that his saliva splashed everywhere, and Shen Zequan's interruption left him so impatient that he slapped his own thigh and said, "Sheesh." The army supervisor eunuch sent by the Chu capital was already about to be massacred at that critical moment. The Prince of Libei jumped on his horse and, with a rise from his whip, advanced to the battlefield. He doesn't have time to wear shoes. Oh, Shen Zequan unwrapped the candy in his hand and continued, "Is that so?" The children's gazes were attracted by the sweet smell and everyone looked at the sweets in Shen Zequan's hands. Shen Zequan opened his hands and gestured for everyone to eat. The children cheered and took all the sweets. Xiaopang Sui was so hot that he couldn't stand it. He wiped his sweat while chewing the candy and said with envy to Shen Zequan, "Your older brother is so kind to buy candy for you every day." I was sick for the past days. Shen Zequan's pronunciation was not clear with the sweet in his mouth, and I don't like to take medicine, so my Xiniang asked my brother to buy them for me. Your Xiniang is so good, too. She looked like a kind person. Not like my mother, ugh. Xiaopang Sui liked to play the storyteller and promptly adjusted his posture and adopted a higher tone. A fierce-looking woman emerged from the ruined courtyard with one hand raising her skirt and the other grabbing a jug spoon. She suddenly stepped forward, "Hat." One swing from here and before we realized it, my older brother was seeing stars and searching for his teeth on the ground. Shen Zequan and the children bowed down from laughing so much. Xiaopang Sui also laughed, speaking with more enthusiasm. That ability to wield a jug spoon that my mother has is no less inferior to the martial prowess of a man, and she can use it on the battlefield. Starting with my father at home, who hasn't been attacked by it before. She is so formidable. Look at my older brother, what a jerk. He even stole my Tang Hulu. Is he still human? He is such a bully. But when he goes home, he still takes a beating from my mother until he cries. As soon as he said that, he heard someone scream behind him. Little rascal, spending all day out of the house ruining my reputation. Damn. Xiaopang Sui came down from the stone in a panic and ran away. My brother is here. See you next time. The children followed suit and scattered noisily behind Xiaopang Sui. The moment Shen Zequan looked back, he saw Jimu coming from afar as well. He folded the candy wrapper into the shape of a frog. While waiting for Jimu to approach, he pressed the frog to make it jump in the palm of his hand. The weather was very hot. Jimu's forehead was covered with a thin layer of sweat. He slightly lifted the tip of his robe and crouched down beside Shen Zequan, where he saw that frog that was so ugly that it had no legs and had to stagger unstably as it jumped. "Where are its legs?" he asked. Shen Zequan pointed to the other side. "There are two here." Jimu tilted his head to look and couldn't help but smile. "How you can put them together?" As he spoke, he stood up and raised his hand to get rid of the branch of leaves that blocked him. With the sun burning over his head, he told Shenzhequan, "Come, let's go home." Shenzhequan jumped off the stone bench, took the school bag from fabric that he had left on the ground and followed behind Jimu to return home. He was still thinking about the story he had just heard, so he asked Jimu, "The Libe armored cavalry never entered the town of Chuan City, so how do everyone know what the Prince of Libe looks like?" What they mean by everyone knows is that everyone doesn't know. Shenzhequan did not understand and Jimu did not explain either. He looked sideways at his younger brother. "You did well in class these days. The teacher met father by chance in the market and praised you. Mother was so happy that she secretly made a new pair of shoes for you." Shenzhequan looked up and simply asked, "How did you know if Shi Niang did this secretly?" "How can I not know?" Jimu sighed. "She exchanged it with my new shoes." Shenzhequan pushed his school bag over his shoulders, not knowing how to respond. Hua Pingting loved Shenzhequan so much and gave him everything first. Along the way, Jimu reached out to pat Shenzhequan on the back. "Use it a few more times on behalf of Guruji. Mother stayed up all night to work on it." Shenzhequan looked at Jimu and nodded. End chapter. Note: Xiaopang Sui also means fatty. Qiang Jin Jiu Extra chapter. The past part 3. These shoes, Xiao Qiye looked onto Xiao Jiming and continued, "They're very big, de gur. They don't have your size." Xiao Jiming folded the letter from home carefully and tucked it back into his chest. "Just settle for them in the meanwhile. When we return, naturally there will be a suitable pair for you." Xiao Qiye took 2 steps. The heels of the shoes dragged across the grass, making a muffled sounds of plop, plop. The more he listened, the more annoyed he got. Feeling dissatisfied, he crossed his arms and said as he looked at Xiao Jiming, "For all it's worth, I have earned some merits in battle and I don't ask for anything but a new pair of shoes." As I said, Xiao Jiming looked at him calmly, "There's not a suitable pair at the moment." Meng landed on Xiao Qiye's shoulder. He was still angry. Xiao Jiming had already turned to enter the tent. Xiao Qiye wanted to imitate his older brother in keeping his composure, but he couldn't help but say, "So in father's letter," he asked timidly, "did he mention me?" Xiao Jiming's movements paused for a moment. After a while, he turned around. Xiao Qiye's eyes shone with anticipation. He wanted no reward, he just wanted to hear a word of praise from Xiao Fangxiu. But then, he would only contain his pride and refuse to give in. He is very much like the old man. Xiao Jiming sighed in his heart. He was pinched in the middle, but it looked like he was more mature than the two of them. He lightly lowered the hand that was lifting the tent flap and said without hesitation, "Even if father praises you, your merits only compensate for your demerits." The corners of Xiao Qiye's lips lifted slightly. He was no longer angry about his shoes. With his arms crossed, he waved his head as if it were really the case. Xiao Jiming cast a glance at the deep blue dome of the sky in the distance. Suddenly, he was in no hurry to get in and deal with military affairs. He turned and sat on the rough wooden railing and patted the spot next to him. Xiao Qiye followed Xiao Jiming's gaze and looked north. The Hanjian Mountains blocked their field of vision. The peak of the mountain that was constantly stretched at its end like the backbone of a wide beast that was seen crouching down at night, all of which were prominent blunt spikes. "What is behind the Hanjian Mountains?" Xiao Jiming asked. Xiao Qiye pinched a stalk of grass and replied, "The wind, right." Xiao Jiming smiled. "It seems you have been taking the teachings of Qianqiu Shifu at heart." Zhou Qianqiu did not look like a general. When his white hair fell loose on his cheeks, he often stared at the wind of Libe in silence, as if he were contemplating those questions that had no answers. Xiao Qiye pressed the handrail, still looking at the Hanjian Mountains. "De Gur, have you never thought about taking a look?" Xiao Jiming was silent. The gerfalcon above his head cried out, and the wind made his sleeves fluttered. He didn't look like a general either. His long, slender fingers partially intertwined, as if he were still sitting on the steps back at home and just having a casual chat with Xiao Qiye. For me, Xiao Jiming said softly. I don't mind staying here. Xiao Qiye felt a little disappointed hearing this, but he did not know why. His young body overflowed with infinite strength, and with it his desire permeated every corner of the world. He wanted too much. He did not understand the harshness of the words "continue the legacy of his predecessors." He just wanted to go on the offensive and attack. It may be because you're married. Xiao Qiye bit the grass stalk and tasted something bitter and continued, but I still want to go and take a look. You talk like you wouldn't getting married. The expression in Xiao Jiming's eyes was complicated. He was already starting to worry about his future younger sister-in-law. There are all kinds of women in the world. Which one do you want? Don't keep changing your heart day by day, okay? Xiao Qiye leaned over and rubbed his face on his arm. He lowered his head and got lost in thoughts for a moment. Finally, he said in a muffled voice, I want. He raised his head and suddenly pointed to the moon. That one. Zhao Hui, who was standing behind them, closed his eyes and his expression was almost saying, he is a lost cause. This moon looked like a jade plate. I really have no requirement. Xiao Qiye removed the grass stalk from his mouth and tagged his fingers. She must be beautiful. At the very least, she should be as pretty as oldest sister-in-law, if not like mother. In any case, she must be more beautiful than the commander-in-chief. Lack of knowledge in taming horses is not a problem, but she should have to be able to ride a horse in some way. I don't worry about fighting battles, but she still have to learn some martial arts, or she must not be very fragile, and I don't want have to give in all the time. There is no need to be skilled in embroidery, I don't care much about anyone's craftsmanship. However, her countenance must be excellent, just like the moon, which may not very approachable, but I can have a complete appreciation of it with even just a glance. The more he talked, the happier he became. I just have to lay my eyes on this person. The moonlight shone on Xiao Qiye's face and a certain light shone in those eyes as he clenched his fist and continued, and I would want this person to be my wife. I'm going to take this other half of mine to ride in Libay, and we can ride as far as my other half wishes. I'll keep up, I can give in a little too, but just a little bit. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu Extra chapter. The Past, Part 4. Shenzequan sneezed. Ji Gang was by chance, washing his hand in the courtyard. Upon hearing the sneeze, he looked and asked with the furrowed forehead, how come you're not improving with this medicine? He's just been taking it for a few days. Chew on air. Hua Pingting waved to Shenzequan. Come here, let Qi Niang feel your head. Shenzequan blew his nose with a handkerchief. The tip of his nose was all red from the rubbing. He stood before Hua Pingting and asked to Jimu in wonder, why do I keep sneezing tonight? Jimu was eating his noodles. He wiped his sweat and sniffed around before telling Hua Pingting, the neighbor next door has just planted a row of osmanthus trees. Chew on air must not be accustomed to their scent, could it? Hua Pingting also hesitated. That's hard to say, but I hope not. He smelled this scent before. Ji Gang approached and took his own bowl. It must be because the medicine of that charlatan doctor that is not good. I'll go somewhere else tomorrow and buy some more concoction on the way back. Shenzequan nodded while eating. He ate slowly and gradually sat in the courtyard to enjoy the fresh air. Jimu sat next to him and played with some stones. This was a game that Jimu had loved since he was a child. He was very good at it and rarely made a blunder. It was a beautiful evening tonight, but for some reason, Jimu was not really chatting much. The barking of dogs could be heard from a distance. Outside the courtyard, a neighbor was on his way home from the passing fields, and the chirping of the long-horned grasshopper between the grass followed the silence. Ji Gang finally finished his meal. He put the bowl and chopsticks down and sat at a short distance to pick his unfinished carvings. Shen Zequan was aware that there was something different tonight. He looked at Ji Mu, trying to get an answer from his older brother. Ji Mu, who was throwing stones in turn and picking them up one at a time, just blinked at Shen Zequan. Today, curving his sturdy back, Ji Gang polished the wood in his hand and said with indifference, "Your mother paid a visit to the Su family." Ji Mu was still picking up the stones. He muttered an to indicate that he heard him. Ji Gang rubbed the smooth surface of the bench's foot with his thumb and stopped for a long time without continuing. When Shen Zequan came out from the kitchen, his older brother was still playing with the stones. Shen Zequan tried to squat on the side and stretched his neck halfway, only to see Ji Mu looking downcast. Unable to crouch on the spot, Shen Zequan sat down instead. He knew about the Su family's household. They lived on the other side of the road. Ji Mu made a big detour every day when he returned home, all just to catch a glimpse of that maiden from the Su family. Ji Mu started throwing the stones, and they rose and went down rhythmically. When I was a kid, I found this game hard to play. I couldn't catch them, so I could only practice daily. Ji Mu avoided some of the light from the kitchen. It was hard to discern his expression with only the left side of his face visible, though the edges of his eyes were somewhat red. But now, I think that anything that can be mastered with perseverance is something that can be easily solved, because there are solutions. Shen Zequan's new shoes were the right size. He took the stone that Ji Mu dropped at his feet and squeezed it between his fingertips. Ji Mu stopped playing. Supporting his arms back, he lamented, "I've tried my best." "Didn't Gur often say that you did your best?" Shen Zequan examined the stone. "When did you start playing with stones in the past? You still practice every day and didn't stop even when Shi Niang scolded you." "It's not the same thing." Ji Mu started to laugh. Shen Zequan began to play with the stones. He was not as good at it as Ji Mu, but he had his own way of picking them up firmly. "I want to be together with Shifu and Shi Niang," he said. "I don't want anyone else. I don't want money either." Ji Mu shook his head. "People always have to go their separate ways, eventually. You have to have your own world. This is something that even heaven will encourage you to do, no matter how reluctant you are. Father and mother love and cherish their children, but they cannot stand by their side forever. Chuan Er will become a good man in the future. More promising than your Guruji." "I'm not as good as Guruji," Shen Zequan grabbed the stone and said in all seriousness. "Even if I learn 100 or 1,000 words, I can never compare with the Dagur." Ji Mu stared intently at Shen Zequan and shortly afterwards, he suddenly felt a wave of tenderness towards him. They became brothers in this family. Apparently, he thought he was the one who gave up things for Shen Zequan, but the fact was, it was Shen Zequan who gave way for him. His younger brother had just turned 12 this year, and his face still had an air of childlike ingenuity, but he was already completely familiar with the art of survival. It was as if he had lost his innocence from the moment he arrived in Duan province. Ji Mu complained again. "My little brother is so silly. What will he do in the future? Don't compare yourself to your Gur. Gur also does not compare to you. We are brothers, we are family. I put father and mother in an embarrassing situation today which I shouldn't have, and that's all my fault. I will not let you fall into such a situation in the future. Chuan Er is very kind. I'm really afraid that you'll find a grumpy wife and become the docile, henpecked husband who lets his wife walk all over you." There were so few women that Shen Zequan knew, and the only grumpy one he knew was Xiao Pang Sui's mother. He thought about it, and his expression could not help but undergo several changes. He shook his head in confusion. "I don't want anyone that shrewd either." Amused, Ji Mu smiled and asked, "So, what kind do you want?" Shen Zequan rubbed the pad of his fingers against the spot where the mosquitoes had bitten him and tilted his head up, baffled by the question. Practically squeezing his brain, he said, having a kind personality, I think. More or less like Shi Niang. She must know how to make dumplings. She doesn't have to be very pretty, although a little pretty is fine. She doesn't have to be very tall as we don't have such a big bed at home. The more he spoke, the more troubled he was. She doesn't have to be very skilled. Someone petite would be better. I can do all the hard work at home to lessen the burden. I prefer if she speak gently, too. Jimu slapped the back of his own neck. He understands it now. I understand. You like a beautiful girl of humble birth who looks all delicate and slender, and is nice and kind. At this point, we will choose someone like this in the future. Gur promises to organize a great wedding for you. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu Extra chapter. The Past, Part 5. Shenzhequan sat until his back became sore. He threw the wiki piece back into the container and heard as Ding Tao and Li Xiong muttered to each other outside. Ding Tao raised a bowl of porcelain from which he had just eaten his shaved ice and said in all seriousness, "This is the headgear that was supposed to be worn at a wedding. The second lord used this that day while walking, toasting wine to everyone he came across and drinking with all of them from the 3 northern and southern estates until they fell drunk." Li Xiong was feeling unbearably hot in his armor, still digging in the shaved ice in his bowl. "You are lying. It's just a bowl. The second lord will not wear that." "It's all true." Ding Tao thought that the headgear that Xiao Qiye wore that day was very ugly and he never dared to talk about it with anyone. Instead, he held back until Li Xiong returned. He said anxiously, "Are we not friends? Why won't you believe me? His Majesty should have been looking better, right?" Li Xiong asked. Ding Tao thought for a moment and said reluctantly, "That's because His Majesty is very beautiful. Sigh, I told Jinggur that the ceremonial garments that they sent were so strange. Lao Fei the 10th have a better taste, but he's very cunning and tried to flatter the second lord into high heavens, so much so that the second lord simply climbed on his horse and left without even looking in the mirror." Li Xiong thought about it. Surprisingly, he understood. He is smart enough not to make the second lord angry. Forget it. Feeling despondent, Ding Tao put the bowl over his head and said desperately, "Fine, it's over and done anyways. We'll just wait for next year. Did you draw all this in the book?" "Since there's no one I can to tell it to, of course I can only draw it in the book." Ding Tao touched the little book on his chest. "I made a lot of drawings. I'll show them to you in a little while." Shenzhequan raised a corner of the beads curtain and say, "Let me see it first." When Xiao Qiye returned at night, he saw Shenzhequan lying face down on the bed, turning the pages. He initially paid no attention, but when he changed his clothes, he noticed that Shenzhequan was looking between him and the book every now and then. Halfway into putting on his clothes, Xiao Qiye asked suspiciously, "Are you looking at the memorials?" Shenzhequan mumbled distractedly aha while drawing some traces on the paper from time to time. Unsatisfied by his divided attention, Xiao Qiye leaned to cover Shenzhequan's eyes while he looked down himself. He saw a small figure clearly drawn in red with a bowl on his head sitting on a fat horse with a round head and a round body. A black bird chased the figure from behind. "What is this that Ding Tao drew?" Xiao Qiye asked surprised. Shenzhequan's eyes were covered. The brush hanging at his fingertips shook slightly as he suddenly burst into laughter. "Xiao Xian." "What?" Xiao Qiye asked. Shenzhequan laughed until he bowled over. Pointing to that little figure, he shouted again, "Xiao Xian." Ding Tao sobbed and sobbed as he stood near the corner of the wall. Hearing the door open, he couldn't help but broke into a run. Xiao Qiye scoffed. "Drag him back. Wait, throw him into the lake and feed him to the frogs." Shenzhequan smoothed out the crumpled paper and considered it. In fact, there wasn't much difference between being strong and robust to being delicate and slender. He folded the paper and thought seriously. Not too bad, grr. Ian fits the criteria, except for being a beautiful girl of humble birth. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu Extra chapter. The Emperor's Grand Wedding. A grand wedding is difficult, said Ding Tao as he shook his head, and this is even more difficult since it's His Majesty's grand wedding. The Ministry of Rites will also have a headache when the astronomy department determine and calculate the most auspicious day and time. Do we people of Libya go to Chu capital to deliver the goose, or do Chu capital come to our Libya to send the goose? Of course it's from Chu capital to Libya. Fei Shen wanted to straighten this protocol for Ding Tao. The so-called proposal is the discussion and arrangement of marriage, so His Majesty must take precedence in this matter. But this wedding should take place in Libya. Chen Yang stood among them and emphasized on this. How are we going to find the place for it? Dying doesn't have a proper venue like Chu capital. Tell the squad of ceremonial guards to stand in the meadows. Gu Jing crossed his arms and continued, our Libya is very vast and spacious. Hey, Ding Tao was enthusiastic. Jinggur is right. This is what it really means to kowtow to the heaven and earth. The weather is so hot and there will be a lot of people. Yu Xiaozhe interjected as he waved his hand. How can anyone withstand this? If everyone faints at that time, the imperial censors will drown you in their saliva. We have to follow the proper marriage rites when it comes to it, but the 6 rituals is not really applicable to our situation. Gao Zhongxiang was also troubled. When it is time for the various officials to offer their obeisances to His Majesty, the imperial envoy must go to the residence in Libya to ask for the bride's proper name and 8 elements. This is the coronation process of the Empress. To send or not to send an imperial register along with the imperial seal, he opened his hand and continued, but how are we supposed to proceed with this matter? The 5 who were sitting around the table became silent. While they were discussing these matters on this side, Li Xiong, on the other side, was still nibbling on his candies. Xiao Sun entered from the front after his study session and handed his bag over to Li Xiong. He asked, what are they talking about? Marriage, Li Xiong snapped his lips. They are talking about His Majesty's marriage ceremony. So, Xiao Sun didn't leave. Seeing that the time was right, he told Li Xiong, wait here for Ding Tao. I will go to second uncle to pay my respects. No way. Li Xiong became anxious. The second lord said I have to follow you closely at all times. Xiao Sun nodded his head to show his agreement. With Li Xiong right behind, he walked past this side to Qinghui Palace and waited for someone to announce his arrival. Not a moment later, the bamboo curtains were raised. The maidservant of the palace was named Xinrui. She bowed to Xiao Sun and said softly, greetings to your highness, His Majesty has summoned you. Xiao Sun entered the palace with a solemn expression and heard the voice of Xiao Qiye inside. I said since the weather is so hot, then there's no need to rush, but no one answered my letter. Xiao Qiye teased the bird in the cage. Is the one getting married me or is it you? Holding his cup of tea in hand, Lu Guangbai replied, You are the one who is getting married. You are getting married. The parrot in the cage imitated his intonation. You are the one who is getting married. You are getting married. Good work. Xiao Qiye rewarded the bird. Tell it again to your second lord. The parrot flapped its wings and said, You will get married. You are getting married. Sooner, sit down with your uncle. It was as if Shenzhequan had eyes on his back. It's been months since you two last seen each other, right? It's indeed have been for several months. Come here. Lu Guangbai was happy to see Xiao Sun. Your parents have a letter to you. Xiao Sun was happy to see him, too. He sat next to Lu Guangbai. Having been taught by Kong Ling, he took great care to behave like a gentleman and act with dignity and grace. You've grown up very fast these days. Lu Guangbai caressed Xiao Sun's head. Sun air keeps changing every day. Shen Zequin's folding fan rested on the edge of a small table. He looked at Xiao Sun and said, he grows taller very fast as well. If the growing is too fast, the legs will hurt. Lu Guangbai looked like he remembered something. Ah yeah, used to whine about it every day at this age. Now that Lu Guangbai had spoken up to this point, Xiao Qiye also remembered. He used to be afraid of being short, so he made the kitchen cook boil milk for him every day, and when he really started growing taller, he couldn't sleep at night because of the pain. He glanced at Lanzhou, not planning to continue this conversation. The second lord was a tough and adamant man. He never whined. Humph. The parrot puffed its chest and said, swimming. A grand marriage will cost public funds. And I think that, Shen Zequin finished reading the protocols drafted by the Ministry of Rites, a small ceremony would suffice. But even a small ceremony involved hundreds of officials in Chu capital to deliberate about it. Besides, the wedding was in Libei. Regardless of whether the officials followed him or not, they have to pay their obeisances to Shen Zequin at the auspicious time. The Ministry of Rites, the ceremonial court of the state, the officer in charge with announcing the decree of the emperor, the ceremonial guards of honor, all of them should be present. Following the protocols, once the imperial envoy brought the wedding gifts to the residence in Libei, Xiao Qiye still had to sit in a litter. Before performing the first of the 6 marriage rites, Shen Zequin had to offer sacrifices to his ancestors. But to whom was he supposed to offer these sacrifices? In addition, Xiao Qiye was also the prince of Qianjin. It made no sense for him to keep the empress seal. If they really gave it to him, he might just use it to break walnuts. This wedding ceremony did not only cause sleepless nights in Chu capital, but it also caused sleepless night in Libei. Lu Yizi's eyes were still wide open in the middle of the night as she shook Xiao Jiming with force, almost wishing to ask him 8 times more times, seriously. Xiao Jiming answered, seriously. And so, Lu Yizi wrote letters to Qidong. After the 5th or 6th letters, even Qi Zuyan couldn't take it anymore. Hurry up and finalize this wedding. Let's schedule it for this day. Shen Zequin made a red circle in the book. Orange jasmine will also be in bloom at this time. Xiao Sun thought that it would take them a while to discuss this. How was he to know that the agreement would be sealed with only a circle and a word from Shen Zequin? But he did not know at that time that when the Ministry of Rites received the approved document, they would not dare to even sit even a bit about the matter and immediately stood up to pass the message quickly. Chen Yang had just had a sip of water when he heard the servant report that the wedding date had been set. Almost spitting out the water, he choked with a cough, trying to suppress it until his face went red. The few people around him who had just sat down rose up again. Only Ding Tao was dizzy with so much laughing as he clenched his fist and shouted, "De Xiong! Let's go back to Libei to ride a horse." "Oh, man." Yu Xiaoze hit the palm of his hand. "We're really going to pass out with the heat this time." After half a month, when the imperial carriage arrived in Libei, Shen Zequin had to be separated from Xiao Qiye. The officials of the Ministry of Rites could not give attention to anything else as they had their hands full with staying close to the Prince of Qianjin. Wherever the Prince of Qianjin went, they have to go, too. They were afraid that the Prince of Qianjin would somersault over the wall to enter the residence where His Majesty was staying and thus, violating the etiquette. Annoyed with the constant presence of watchmen, Xiao Qiye jumped into Lang Tao Shuijin to go for a ride. He wanted to jump over the wall in the middle of the night, but when he reached the wall, there were still men following him on foot. Xiao Qiye pointed at them, completely speechless. It was all he could do not to scream, "Just wait here." On the day of the wedding proposal, when they had to present gifts, Shen Zequin sent a wild goose to the residence in Libei. Xiao Qiye considered it acceptable and sent Meng as the returned gift. He even tied a red ribbon to Meng. The imperial envoy who came by with the imperial decree to perform the second rite of asking the bride's name and 8 characters exclaimed inwardly with shock and persuaded him with an obsequious smile, "This is not how it works, Your Highness, the second lord." But the second lord refused to listen to him. He whistled and Meng flew by itself to Lanzhou. *****. Ding Tao knocked on the bowl and said in all seriousness. "The grand wedding is today. Stay close to me and I assure you that you will not go hungry." Li Xiang also hit the bowl and replied after him, "I'm not going to go hungry." While the two were making a commotion on the hallway, the window on the top floor opened and Qi Ziyin stuck her head out. "What's all the noise about?" Commander-in-Chief Qi looked like she was still half asleep. She pointed to her own head. "It's too noisy that you're giving me headache." "Commander-in-Chief." Ding Tao was not afraid of Qi Ziyin, because Qi Ziyin was not very fierce towards children. "Is Grandpa here yet? We will hold the hair combing ceremony. It is still early." Qi Ziyin searched for some pieces of sweets and distributed them to the 2 boys, while she herself ate a piece as well. "What is the rush? The master of human relations has not yet arrived." "Who's that?" Ding Tao asked. "He teaches people by showing them pictures." Qi Ziyin grumbled. "Do you need to look at pictures when you get married?" Ding Tao touched his own little notebook. "I can already do this." Gu Jing couldn't stand it anymore. He picked up Ding Tao from behind and closed the window. "Hey," Ding Tao held the notebook in his chest and said in a bewilderment, "I haven't finished talking to Commander-in-Chief Qi yet. I've told you a long time ago to teach him a little about the ways of the world." Chen Yang lifted the hanging screen. "Why is he still an idiot?" And thanks to his influence, his De Xiang is now an idiot, too. Shen Zequin was not wearing a crown as he sat behind the screen and waited for the incense to light up. He heard Chen Yang come in and inform him of the arrival of Ji Gang. He made mention of getting up to receive him, but Ji Gang signaled for him to remain seated. "According to the rites, when Shifu puts the crown for you, there must be an elder of the family present to observe the ceremony." Ji Gang caressed the top of Shen Zequin's hair. "It's a shame that there's only the 2 of us to depend on each other." Shen Zequin bowed his head in reverence and respect of Ji Gang. "Although Shifu and I are not blood relatives, we are as close as real family. This bow is to thank Shifu for the many years he has raised me." Ji Gang looked at Shen Zequin's hair. His lips trembled. All his words stalled at this very moment, dissolving in sorrow. He slowly leaned over and stroked the head of Shen Zequin once more. "My son went through difficult times for half his life. For all that heaven has been unjust to you, from now on," he began to choke with sobs. "From now on, you have to be well and safe, and live in marital happiness to old age with that second master Xiao." Shifu's rough hand trembled slightly. Shen Zequin felt his heart ache. With a lump in his throat, he called out, "Shifu! Shifu!" Ji Gang quickly turned his head to the side to wipe away his tears. "We will not shed tears on the day of your wedding. Get up. Shifu will put the crown for you." The capping ceremony was the rite of passage into adulthood. The ceremony for the emperor was called the Shanghong ceremony. It was a necessary ceremonial rite before marriage. The various officials were originally supposed to be present, and as soon as Shen Zequin had his crown placed, they would prostrate 9 times to congratulate him. However, Shen Zequin preferred the simple one from the complicated one, and so they skipped the latter. Once Ji Gang placed the crown for Shen Zequin, he took 2 steps back. Shen Zequin bowed to Ji Gang again. After the ritual was completed, he was led by Hua Xianji with the orange jasmine in the outer room to the entrance to receive the congratulatory kowtow from Kong Ling, Fei Shen, and the rest of his original subordinates. Then it was the time to offer sacrifice to the ancestor, which he did not make. Instead, he simply knelt down before heaven and earth. Having bowed to heaven and earth, he bowed to Qi Huilian as an expression of his eternal gratitude to the kindness of his teacher. Once this was done, Shenzhen still could not leave. He had to go back to his room and wait for the Master of Human Relations. The so-called Master of Human Relations was someone who brought with him some erotic arts to impart to the emperor the knowledge of human relations. The master who entered did not dare to look directly at Shenzhen, who was sitting in the main seat. He scattered the pictures on the carpet, but before he could start his speech, he saw a gerfalcon entered through the window and treated his picture as cloth rag to clean its feet. Shenzhen bent down to undo the red silk ribbon on Meng. There was a fine-toothed comb hanging from it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Xiao Qiye did not wear a crown while sitting without inhibitions in the middle of the room. I've been waiting for 2 hours, Shifu. The auspicious hour has not yet come. Zhou Kai held a military strategy book in hand. Wait a little more. Xiao Qiye spun his thumb ring as he turned his head to look at the birds flying outside, wishing he was amongst them. He looked for a moment and suddenly said, Shifu, as soon as we parted today, I will be a man with a wife, a family. I never forget how father once said that I had to race with him when I got married. Shifu, can you race with me? Zhou Kai looked at Xiao Qiye and felt tender compassion for him. He watched Xiao Qiye grow up. When Xiao Qiye was still a wolf cub, he was always close to him and followed him everywhere. The little wolf wanted to ride a horse, tame a falcon and cross the entire Hanjian mountains. That little boy who once asked him what is desire, on the wind had already become a man with a wife and family. Of course. Zhou Kai smiled. As soon as you're done drinking, we'll race. Xiao Qiye smiled, too. He stood up and leaned over the screen to tell Lu Guangbai and Xiao Jiming, who were holding their breath in full attention in the outer room, I'm going to get married today, so as my gag, please do me a favor and keep the wine for me later, okay? It's not a problem for me, Lu Guangbai supported his arm. It's your elder brother that you have to convince. Xiao Qiye was quick to adapt. Degur. Xiao Jiming just drank his tea and said nothing. So, Xiao Qiye dragged his voice. Degur, if you don't agree, I'll yell for Deseo. All right, Xiao Jiming sighed and said with the cup of tea in his hand. I understand. Someone outside announced that it was time. Zhou Kai adjusted his clothes and crown and stood up with a solemn expression. Xiao Jiming raised the crown to Xiao Qiye and extended it to Zhou Kai, who then placed it to Xiao Qiye. Ah yeah. Zhou Kai looked into Xiao Qiye's eyes. After a moment, he said, go. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It began to drizzle when Shenzhen stepped out of the door. The ceremonial guards of honor outside did not hold umbrellas. Only Fei Sheng was waiting by the balcony. He tried to open an umbrella for Shenzhen, but Shenzhen signaled for him to keep it. Master, Fei Sheng bowed and whispered, it's a long journey. If we don't use an umbrella, the second lord will become anxious when he sees us. The heaven has sent me congratulations for my wedding. Shenzhen raised his eyes to look up to the sky. I have to receive it. So Fei Sheng put down the umbrella on his side and held his blade. I will follow however master decided to go. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Lu Guangbai rode his horse in the rain. He initially wanted to ask if they were supposed to switch to a litter, but before they could arrive, he saw the cavalry opposite from them galloping fast. They did not look like the ceremonial guards of honor, but more like the imperial guards. He abruptly stopped his horse. Before he could shout a word, the wailing across to him cut him off. Your Majesty. The official from the astronomy department lifted his robes and continued his pursuit as he shouted all the way, there is still some time before the auspicious hour, the auspicious time. Shenzhen's sleeves and robes were like a mythical eagle flying low in the rain. He passed by Lu Guangbai and suddenly burst out laughing. Raindrops splashed when Feng Tashuangyi came out through the strong winds like a quick flash of lightning. Xiao Qiye dash. Shenzhequan shouted with all his might. Get out and marry me. Xiao Qiye was still inside the main gate of the courtyard. When he heard the shouting, the copper basin with which he washed his hands almost turned upside down. He put his head out and doubtfully asked Zhao Hui, "Is it my turn yet?" Zhao Hui replied with certainty, "Not yet. Your Majesty." Holding the book in hand, the official from the astronomy department ran until he was almost out of his breath. Oh heavens, the auspicious hour is not yet. Shenzhequan's horse scattered the squad of ceremonial guards across from him. Chen Yang and Tan Tai who met in the crowd. They were both completely confused. We're not done yet. Tan Tai who said confusedly. Why did you come already? Where is the second lord? Chen Yang was so anxious that he hit his foot. Call the second lord. Your Highness the second lord. Fei Sheng got off his horse and took the lead in shouting through the wall. Your Highness the second lord. Xiao Qiye moved the head of the man who was blocking his view and saw Lanzhou on his horse. He immediately lifted the tip of his robe to meet him, but an official from the Ministry of Right beside him fell on his knees with a plop and hugged his thigh. Your Highness the second lord, it's not time yet. Your Highness the second lord. Another official grabbed Xiao Qiye's arm to stop him. The ritual is not over yet. Xiao Qiye grabbed the other man through the back of his last collar. As he plucked the other away from himself, he told Ding Tao, "Take him away." "As you command." Ding Tao screamed without moving. "De Xiong, go." Li Xiong opened his arms and shouted as he stormed through the crowd and completely wrapped his arms around the other man and pushed him down. Whoa! The officials who were being jostled among the crowd staggered and stumbled on their feet. What the hell? Tan Tai who rolled on the group. Is this a wedding or a kidnapping of the bride? The official from the astronomy department had already run alongside Shenzhequan's horse. He could barely speak clearly. Your Majesty. The raindrop in Shenzhequan's ear glistened. He went off his horse from the other side to circumvent the officials from the astronomy department. Who among them on the entrance would dare to stop him? They haven't even drunk the wine yet, and they were all already pretending to be drunk. Xiao Qiye grabbed Shenzhequan's hand and pulled hard to bring him into his arms. He embraced Shenzhequan and raised his fingers to whistle. "Meng, let's go." The official from the Ministry of Right slapped his thigh. The crowd of people made way out of the door again and chased after them. Your Highness the second lord. You haven't done the tribute ceremony yet. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. The official of the astronomy department held onto the door for support and gasped for breath as he shouted weakly, "With this, the ceremony ends." Meng spun and broke through the rain. It abruptly opened its wings and cut the gale while flying towards the Hongjian mountains, which was shrouded in mist in the distance. Raindrop dripped down on the smiling faces of both men as Lang Tao Shuijin threw everything from the mundane back forward. Their overlapping sleeves and robes fluttered in the wind, dancing along with the strand of grass fluttering in the wind as they disappeared in the rain. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu Extra chapter. Notebook. When Fei Sheng was in Chu capital, he did not have the opportunity to interact with the guards of Libei. Now that he had the mind to gravitate around Xiao Qiye, he had to engage with them for his personal gain. Pretending to be stupid, Chen Yang only touched on trivial matters when he drank wine with the Jin Yi and paid no attention to Fei Sheng. Only Ding Tao, who was still a silly boy, was persuaded by Fei Sheng with some sweets to the point of that he started addressing him as a gur. Can you Jin Yi take that? Ding Tao washed his brush and tilted his head to speak to Fei Sheng. I have heard that the Jin Yi who guarded the army inspecting censor eunuch who went to Kedong even dared to reject the commander-in-chief, Qi Shiu. A glory like that is for sure something that we the guards of Libei don't have. Fei Sheng threw some peanuts in his mouth. This is the glory bestowed by the Son of Heaven. We have kept a discreet profile after Ji Wufan's death. Ding Tao put the brush aside to dry and continued, leaving everything else aside, just the ability to collect information and make records is already very impressive. My father used to mention it when he was still alive. Remembering Ding Tao's photographic memory, Fei Sheng said, "Silly boy, if you want to learn, I will teach you. Now that we leave the palace, the rules are not as strict as before. I just need to tell the master later." He did not expect Ding Tao to grin at him while fishing for the little notebook that rarely came out of his chest. "There is no need to teach me," Ding Tao said. "I already know how to do that. My father taught me personally." Qiao Tianya, who was on the other side of the courtyard, rolled up the tobacco and spoke to Gu Jin, who stood like a wooden trunk next to him. "Did the heir apparent really read that little notebook of Ding Tao?" "He has to hand it over for years before," Gu Jin said. "But he doesn't have to do it anymore. Since we are following the second young master now, everything is fine as long as the second young master checks it out." Qiao Tianya bit the pipe and tilted his body. He smiled and said, "All right, then." Gu Jin straightened the front of his clothes. After a moment of pause, the tip of his ears suddenly twitched. He turned his head to look at Qiao Tianya and asked with a frown, "Did you take a peek before?" Qiao Tianya knocked the pipe and said slowly between puffs of smoke, His little drawings are very ugly." Ding Tao always cleaned his little notebook with cowhide cover every day. Pieces of strange notes were wedged everywhere between the pages. This boy was so meticulous that he even scribbled red frames around relatively important information. Several days later, he handed his notebook to Xiao Qiye's desk as usual. Shen Zequan happened to pass by at that time. He thought the notebook was the book of the Jinyi Wei for gathering information and recording, so he arbitrarily flipped through it while discussing matters with Gu Jin and saw the shocking words written on the last page. The first year of the Tianchen era. The Great Snow. The second young master owed to the jewelry shop at Chinwu Street in Chu capital 3,600 silver taels. Xiao Qiye had just walked through the door when he sneezed. Before he could say a word, he lifted his head and saw Shen Zequan with a notebook in his hand. "When we got out in a few days," Shen Zequan closed the notebook and sighed, "take a few thousand silver taels with you." End of extras.